Hi, I'm Dan Schinder,
And I'm Steven Schinder.
and we're here with a Yesshift news desk report for November 13th, 2021, as we're recording this. And Steve, once again, has come through with a lot of digging and data mining and great homework that I would never be able to get done. So, Steve, thanks for all the great prep with this. It's exciting to bring all the different variety of things to our viewers and listeners within the Yes universe and the outside fringes as well. But this particular news desk report is, I think, might be the first one, maybe, where it's all yes, except for one thing you're going to mention.
Yeah, except for a couple things here and there. But
But
yeah, I think,
mainly it's all very yes related, if not yes directly.
yeah, like we have little tidbits that we heard from interviews with Yes members recently. And we also have some stuff. Rick Wakeman made an announcement and something to do with a Yes tribute band as well. And, just a couple other odd things. And yeah, like I think it's safe to say that this may potentially be the only news episode we put out in November, given our schedule for the rest of the month. But there's still like a lot of good stuff here. But yeah, I guess
It,
before we
it,
get, go
I'm sorry.
ahead.
The exception would be if there's any crazy breaking news,
Right.
in which case we'll pump that out. We'll drop what we're doing, even if it's while on vacation together, and we'll just sit together and do it, which would actually be cool.
All
But
right.
don't
Yeah.
count on that, folks. Only like if John Anderson joins again or Bill Bruford comes back or whatever. Not that we want Alan
Oh
to
man,
leave.
those would be like those would just break the Yes fandom internet if either of those happened.
I would get up from the Thanksgiving dinner table with you and go record it in the other room. I mean, or do it live. We would do it live if anything like that, remotely like that happens.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But
Or maybe
yeah.
Francis Monkman joins. I don't know.
Or Eddie Jobson becomes the new keyboardist.
With Jeff Downs.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, we'll begin with a couple of feedback comments that we got, I think, regarding our last news episode or some recent stuff we said. So,
Yeah.
first, Inventioning, we talked about them recently. They said, thanks so much for the awesome review of Some People. It's their single that they put out featuring John Anderson, Jean-Luc Ponty, and Oliver Wakeman. It's really good. The artwork was done by Jordan Lewis, who also filmed the Onward music video.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, Jordan is reworking the artwork for the new poster, so it will go beyond what we did for the single. Jordan is also filming the new music video we're doing for Some People.
Nice. How did they find out about it? Do you know?
What about our episode or?
Yeah.
Oh, because I tagged them.
Oh, okay. So that worked. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your feedback on the feedback.
Yeah.
We
And
appreciate it.
yeah, and we got just one more before we get to the news proper. So
Sure.
Adam Sears from Lobate Scarp.
Wait, how'd they find out about it?
Because I tagged Lobate
Oh,
Scarp.
okay.
Yeah. Adam said, thanks again for another shout out for Lobate Scarp. Rozfest, and in parentheses he says, by the way, you can pronounce it as Rozfest. I guess because on the episode I was saying ROS Fest or something, but
Yeah.
that's good to know. Rozfest
Wait, but what if he means pronounce it RAHS Fest?
Yeah, I doubt it, but
Okay.
who knows? So he says Rozfest is one of the longest running prog rock festivals in the US. Was in Pennsylvania and moved to Florida a few years ago. This upcoming one will be the 17th consecutive, not including COVID cancellation in 2020 and recuperating in 2021. You can also find lots of info and videos of the bands on the Rozfest Facebook page and also get tickets at rozfest.org. You guys should go.
Yeah,
And
we should. How do I not know about this? I mean, I know I'm busy and important. Well, busy anyways, but I don't know how I don't know about this. I'm pretty tapped in. I'm the Drum Talk TV guy. I mean, I run the largest media company online covering the world of drumming. Prague is most of what I play on my series on that
Right.
network or whatever. I don't know how I don't know this, but I love finding out about stuff that I don't know about. I'm not ashamed, but I'm like, how do I not know about this? It's just like
Yeah.
discovering the new bands that we led off with here. So that's great. So when is it? Or is there a way we could
That's
go?
in April, if I remember correctly.
Around my birthday, we should go.
Oh, yeah, I would love to go. But it again, like we don't know for sure yet. But yeah, it sounds like a really cool thing, and I'm sure there will probably be like some videos that people post as well. Either way, so we'll
Yeah.
see.
Yeah, that would be wow. Now, one more distraction for me to focus on.
Sure.
Wonderful. Thanks, Adam.
Yeah. And so, right off the top with the news, we'll start with something that came out like toward the end of last month. So, there's a Rolling Stone article that was all about Carl Palmer and his ELP Legacy tour that was coming up and is now like in progress. So, I was able to pull the quote from the article. And it said Palmer's ELP Legacy starts a month-long US tour on November 3rd and a combined Yes, Asia, and Legacy trek next year to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Asia's debut, which included Palmer, is in discussion.
I
Now,
find that very interesting.
yeah, so I've not seen this confirmed elsewhere. Like I don't know if they're still hashing out the details or if they've shot it down by now because it's been a couple weeks since this. But
I
what do you think of that idea of those three bands touring together next year?
I have a lot of thoughts about that, and I will reach out to someone who would know. I'll talk to you about that offline. Um, but I think it's great. In one way, it's a reach for me to see two bands in one night. Like I'd rather just see a band that I go to see play more music. I'd rather just see more Yes, play Yes, or more Asia played by Asia, or more Carl Palmer's ELP. But I get this. They're all part of and they're in the same solar system of each other, and it all works. And it of course makes me wonder: would Steve Howe step on stage with Asia? Would he play with Ron Thal if he's still with them? Like, what is the plan there? I'd like to know. If Jeff's going to do double duty, would Steve do double duty like we saw him do in whatever year that was?
Yeah, like in 2009, and then in the Royal Affair tour itself, he was on the last few Asia songs, from
Yeah.
what I remember.
So that intrigues me. I would love to see it. I also read earlier in the year, and I don't remember who said it, if it was Carl himself, but he was talking about doing, I think it was Carl actually, saying he wanted to do a show where he had holograms of Greg Lake and
Oh
Keith
wow.
Emerson on stage with him. And I don't know if they've worked that out, if that would be included in this. And I have mixed feelings about that, but none of them are negative. So that's a whole separate thing that we'll address if we find out it's going to come to fruition. I do find it fascinating. And I know I don't look at it as, okay, so here's part of my concern, if I may, with that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think some people might criticize it. Some people might look at it as cheesy. Some people might look at it as disrespectful. And I see it the absolute opposite. I see it as a reflection of the age we're living in, where that could be a possibility technologically. So go ahead and do it. I see it as a way for Carl honoring these two guys that they really all put each other on the map. I mean, granted, Keith Emerson was in the Nice and everything, but and Carl with Atomic Rooster, but when we really look at what made those three men giants in their space, is the three of them working together. And there's not, and hasn't been, isn't, and probably will never be a band that sounds anything like them. Yes, John Wetton and Greg Lake have similar voices, but musically, there'll never be another of each of them or collectively. So I think that's really neat. And I would love to see that. And would he be playing to, would, would, would his band still be playing, but you see Keith and Greg? That's kind of like what I want to know. Does Francis Monkman make an appearance? Like what's the deal? I know I'm probably overplaying that, but I find it
Right.
fascinating. But to go back to your original question, Steve, and viewers, listeners, please chime in, answer the same questions that Steve and I ask each other. We don't rehearse this. We don't talk about it. I usually don't see the notes until he sends them to me the day before. I might peek, but I look at them when we're doing the show, basically. So it's all fresh, it's all authentic, and we'd love your input. What do you think of this tour possibility of the three together? Having said what I said about not being excited about seeing 3 or 4 bands, I would go see this because of who it is and because there's probably going to be some overlap, which would be cool. And they're all part of the soundtrack of my life, all of them. And it's all music I still play. We're going to do a big celebration of Asia's debut on Drum Talk TV when the time is right. We did a celebration of Fragile's 50th anniversary. We're doing one of what's that other album that kind of had an impact? 90125. Yeah. So this is totally up my alley, and I'd love to go see it. I would. How about you? What do you think of it? Are they overplaying something? Is it too obvious, or is it like this is what they should be doing?
Right. So before I answer that, I kind of want to address the hologram thing just real
Sure.
quickly, and then we'll get back to this. I'm not as on board with the hologram idea. Like, with movies, I've been on board with some of the the CGI de-aging thing, like Tarkin and Rogue One,
And
but
bringing
others,
Princess Leia back after she passed away and all that.
yeah, like that stuff worked, but other stuff not so much. Like it can be hit and miss, but like the idea of a hologram on stage rather than like on screen or whatever, it just feels weird to me still. I haven't heard Carl Palmer mention this idea. I know that John Anderson has mentioned something similar a few years ago. Like he was like, "Oh yeah, they'll make holograms of us and they'll go out on tour or whatever." And so it sounds like it's kind of weird hearing that these people might be all for it when someone like me is like I don't know, like it maybe if it's just for a few seconds rather than the whole concert, like just a little tribute type of thing, but
Or maybe
it's
specific landmark songs, iconic songs like for
right.
Carnival 9 or something like that, Lucky Man or
Maybe, yeah. Like it's I don't know, like something like that would take me some getting used to. I'm still
so
at that point where I'd much rather see physical people play the whole set. You know.
sure. So let me ask you this, and folks, what do you think of Steve's take? Let us know, and of course, give us yours. So your your aversity to that possibility, how is that different than when a band like Rush or someone like that, when they're playing, you see video of them when they were younger, or like
It's because
showing.
of the dimensions, because it's obviously on a screen, whereas if it's three-dimensional, it might be a little bit unsettling,
Well, I
depending
think
on how it's
I
done.
think the hologram, the way it would, the only way it might be able to work is if the hologram is actually appears to be three-dimensional, but it's projected on a like a glass or plexiglass sort of
Hmm.
screen, if you will. Um, so in a way where no matter where you sit, it looks halfway decent rather than like here's Enja's picture, rather than like from straight ahead, it looks great. But if you're sitting on the side, it looks all like what the fuck? Like they're only an inch thick. What's going on? I know that Greg Lake was more than an inch thick, so um so is it more the presence of them or more that you don't think the technology will live up to the hype?
I mean, I don't even know that the technology is really necessary. Like I know that
Okay.
technology will keep marching on, but it's like
So you don't think the
There's
experience is really necessary, basically, is what you're
yeah,
saying?
like I mean that's my take at least
Okay.
right now. Like it's kind of hard for me to visualize how it could be done in the near future, but I
So
mean,
here,
who
so
knows?
here's a question because I'm curious, and I'm sorry to belabor this, but I find this
Yeah, I
topic
was
really
not expecting to have this discussion.
I know, me neither, but I find this intriguing because it's leading to other questions, and that's because we do this very organically. I'm wondering, first I thought, I wonder if this is a generational thing. And at first I thought in a shallow way, maybe it is, because those people are more the soundtrack of my life than yours. But that's not true when it comes to Yes. So let me ask you this. Let's change the venue of the idea for a moment. What
Right.
if Yes went on tour and they did a thing where they played the fish and there was a hologram of Chris from one of the tours playing along with Alan, and whether it's Billy playing it or it's from a recording and they remove the drums and Alan's playing it or with headphones on to the track, or something like that, because Yes is as much the soundtrack of your life than mine, even though my life has been longer so far. So,
Right.
like, what if would that work for you if they just did one song and brought Chris out on a hologram for that iconic, especially for a 50th anniversary tour of Fragile? Would that work for you, or is that still just kind of like icky for you?
It's hard to say. Like, maybe this is a thing where I wouldn't know for sure unless I was present while it's happening.
It's like beer. You just don't know till you taste it.
Right.
Okay, well that's fair. Okay.
Yeah. But
I'm curious. Yeah, tell us, viewers, listeners, what you think. It's a very intriguing topic.
yeah, but going back to the question of what
Yeah,
I think of the idea of
of the tour.
of a tour with these three bands, um, I have mixed feelings about it. Like, obviously, next year is the 40th anniversary of Asia's debut album. And it's like, how can you not celebrate that milestone? It's their first album. It's your favorite album, if I'm not mistaken, by
It
them.
it is,
Um,
and it's one of my top albums of all time, I think, and maybe top prog albums, even though some people would
mm,
argue that some of it's not prog at all.
right.
And I would, but yeah, it's way up there for me. It's way up there. The production was way ahead of its time. Thank you, Mike Stone.
Right. So I understand like wanting to do it because like given what we knew about what Yes are planning, they're gonna be in Europe in May, and they're talking about possibly being in the US in March and April. They haven't confirmed it yet. And given like what the year is gonna look like, before this, I thought, I feel like at the earliest, Asia probably won't tour again until 2023 at the earliest. But obviously
Ooh,
that wouldn't be the 40th anniversary of Asia. It'd have to be 2022. And so having these bands tour together is sort of a way to get the anniversary in. But I kind of worry that having these three bands together, and again, we don't know if this is for sure happening still, like
right.
it might shorten the Yes set list. Like we know that they want to play Relayer, but like with these three bands touring together, like how much of the quest could they play in the states? And
That that's a great point. And there's a whole other thing. So my take before, where'd the hat go? Oh well. My take before really came from a fan's perspective. But if I put the business hat on, it could totally be economics. Like as a fan, I'm with you. I don't want anyone else's time to water down someone else's time, and we get less of that. That's kind of what my point was before. But for economic purposes, and considering that a lot of people don't have the money that they might have had 5 years ago to go to a concert, because a lot of people went
mm,
on furlough, a lot of people lost their jobs, a lot of people, their businesses closed, there's all of that. Economically, I would respect that. It makes sense. Put all three bands on one ticket, tour them together, feed them together, house them. Well, not house them together, but you know what I mean. It's just, it's a lot. The venue gets rented once and not three times. So there is that, and I respect that, and I kind of feel bad that we we live in those times when I've seen all those bands in big arenas.
mm,
So it's like, I remember the first time I saw Yes in a small venue was the Open Your Eyes tour, and walking into the venue in San Diego, I was like, this is weird. It just was weird to me, but the experience was great because it was certainly more intimate. Even though we sat close, it was still. So things are different now. Things are different, and I would respect it if they just came out and said, "You know what? This is why we're doing it." I'd say, "Okay, makes sense."
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if this does happen. Yeah, I guess we could move on to the next item.
Okay. Hey, one last thing on
Yeah.
that last topic. Hey, if that's the only reason, then play from 6 to midnight, and everyone gets 2 hours. Don't water anyone's time down, and there you go. Everyone
Yeah, I
gets
mean, if it
everything.
were a 6-hour concert altogether, then yeah, I'd be on
Yeah,
board like
have two
fully. Yeah.
intermissions that are half hour long or 20 minutes long. I'd be totally down for that because I'd rather have a longer night and see more of where I'm you all know what I mean. Moving
Yeah.
on.
All right. So kind of touching upon touring plans a little bit. Just yesterday, as we're recording this, there was an interview posted that Billy Sherwood did with Radio Forest on 96.9, the Eagle KKGL. So Billy says that there's still talk of a March and April tour in the States uh, with Yes. And he suggested that they will know for sure around the new year. So yeah, I guess they're like still trying to confirm some things about that. And when asked about how string sections on the Quest songs would be handled on tour, he joked that it'd be difficult dragging a 60-piece orchestra around. And he said that sampling could handle the string sections.
With all due respect, I need to interrupt. I know there's another point
Okay.
on this. With all due respect, and I mean this with all due respect, I wrote that in an email to someone that I reviewed something for, and they wrote back and said, "Thanks for the all due respect. I know that really means this part sucks." but that's not what I mean. But I don't think that's even a valid question because you can't even tell it's a real orchestra on the album. We talked about that in the review. Like, I had no idea. I thought it was Jeff going bram, but so it's like not even like, why would you bring that up? It's not like it's
I mean, I
uh
think this is another
it,
thing where you and I differ, where knew there was an orchestra, but maybe
but
that's
it doesn't
because they announced
sound,
it
but it's not like
beforehand.
magnification where you could tell that it's an orchestra doing all of that. It's just so blended in and unelaborate that I don't know. But Billy's right. It's very expensive to do that. It's union. You're paying them even on lunch. I mean, it's just not realistic anymore. Or in this case, for one song or whatever. But anyways, sorry. I just thought that question was sort of like, really? Did you have to? How do you think it would be done? How do you think Rick
Yeah.
Wakeman's done it all these years, and Tony Banks and everybody else? Sorry.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I also had the same reaction. Like, that's kind of a funny question to ask when I feel like it's kind of obvious, but sure. Like, I felt like it was worth mentioning, like, just anyway. But it was like an interesting interview, less than 10 minutes. He also talked about what it was like filling in for Chris Squire and John Wetton and like how emotional it was. Um, and sort of going along those lines, on November 5th, the Yes official Facebook page shared a post about Alan Simon's new album, Excalibur 5. And the post says, "It is dedicated to our great friend John Wetton. We have a long history with Alan Simon as John Anderson appeared on Excalibur 2." And I've actually heard the song that John was on that 2007 album. It's called Circle of Life.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, it goes like, "I'm the moon and the sky." Like, it sounds really good. And so Wetton is featured on the final track of Excalibur 5 titled The Vision.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and
Playing bass and singing, or just singing? Do you know?
I believe he'd be doing both.
And so then, when was that recorded? Do you know, Steve?
I'm not sure when this was recorded because Wetton passed away in early 2017, so like he'd have to be like Alan Simon would have had to have been sitting on this for a while, I
Yeah.
guess.
He,
Um,
by the way, John Wetton's voice is one of my favorites. Um,
mm,
I just love his voice going all the way back to King Crimson. I love the stuff he did with Asia. I love his voice on both the UK albums, and his voice always held up live very, very well, no matter who he was with. Just a solid, all around musician, a rock star, wore leather pants, awesome bass player, wrote great songs and lyrics, great singer, great player, just the whole package, really.
yeah, and I'm glad that we're still getting
Wore
some.
leather pants. Sorry.
Well, like I'm glad we're still like I guess discovering these posthumous recordings that these great musicians no longer with us did.
Yeah.
Recently was the anniversary of Keith Emerson's passing and Greg Lake's birthday, and I mean just within the last couple of days, Graham Edge from the Moody Blues passed away, and
Yeah.
he's on the song Late Lament that's going to be on John Lodge's The Royal Affair and After, which yeah, that comes out on December 3rd. So it's like, we still get these posthumous recordings even after these people pass, like Robbie Steinhardt as well. Yeah.
Very interesting point, and very interesting that John Lodge added and after.
Yeah, well,
If
that's
you think, I
because
mean, with Graham passing away, and then there's the and after part. That's really interesting, prophetic almost.
I mean, yeah, I never looked at it that way. I mean, I know the title was because it includes stuff from the Royal
Of
Affair
course,
tour
yeah,
and the next tour that he did like right after that. But
yeah. I
yeah,
just find
it's
it interesting, curiously interesting.
yeah.
Um,
And this is a handsome cover for
oh yeah,
Excalibur
if you're
5.
watching the video version, there it is. And if you're only listening to audio, check out our show on our Facebook page at facebook.com/Yesshift. It's gorgeous.
Yeah.
Wow. It really is beautiful. I love the font. I love the artwork.
Yeah, like move,
It's
cry, act, clash with an exclamation point. And it's got
yeah.
like the monoliths and the lightning on the sword hilt.
And
It's
yeah, it's beautiful. The skyscape, the landscape, the fog around the ground. It's really neat. Very good work. Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So I'll have to give that one a listen. I want to listen to all five of these in full. From the sample I heard, it sounds like it's a rock opera, so it does get heavy. Sounds almost metal, at least from the sample that I heard.
And
Um,
are they linked 1 through 5, or are they a related story? And I'm sorry, folks, I
um,
don't know as much of this
yeah, I
about
mean,
this as
I'll have
some
to
of you
look
might.
that up,
Okay.
but like from what little I've heard, like it sounds like it'd be up my alley, like musically.
Yeah, me too. I'd love to check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Going back, you mentioned, sorry, that Billy Sherwood talked about a possible March, April tour in the works. Is that festival something they would play at? Do you know?
Um, I mean, if it is, like they haven't been confirmed yet. Like last I
Okay.
checked, they weren't listed on the website. Because yeah, like they have like the list of performers on the
Okay.
schedule, and I don't think Yes is on there at the moment. So
Crazy question, but anybody you know?
we've talked about this, but John Anderson and the Paul Green Rock Academy will be
Right.
there, and Lobate Scarp.
Of course. Yeah.
Yeah, and yeah, a bunch of these are new to me.
Okay.
Robert Barry, that's a familiar one. So yeah, I'm curious about whether they have all the performers sorted out or whether like they're still waiting to get confirmation from
They
people.
probably are. They probably still are waiting. But okay, great. Thanks for backtracking with me a little bit on that.
Yeah, for sure.
Next, we have an Alan White Atwood Magazine interview. This was released on November 2nd. We've got the link in the post to the full interview. but we're going to
Yeah.
give you some fun little snippets from it. And Steve will read the question and I'll read Alan White's answers. This is just kind of a fun little teaser. We do encourage you to go and read the whole article by Mr. Atwood. It's actually really good. But
Oh,
go
it's
ahead, Steve.
Ben Neeson,
Oh,
the
that's right.
author.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, the article is titled Music to My Ears, a conversation with Yes's Alan White. And it's a real good interview, like we said, but here's like a few tastes of it. So one of the questions that he asked was, considering that Jeff and John are writing music, do you foresee Yes albums still being made when you and Steve are gone?
And Alan says, don't put it like that, referring to the word gone. Eventually, when we retire, but we have no intention of doing that right now. Who knows? There's a possibility that will happen, but we just got to carry on the banner as long as we can.
Yeah, and then Neeson says Bob Weir or Wire. I'm not
It's
sure.
Weir. It's Bob Weir.
Oh, okay, I was right the first time. Bob Weir describes this dream where he's watching the Grateful Dead's music being played and then slowly realizing that none of the members there are actually the original Grateful Dead members. They're all you. Sorry, let me just repeat that. That none of the members there are actually the original Grateful Dead members. They're all, people that have been introduced.
So Alan says that's possible. That is a possible foreseeable future, but not in the way that I'm looking at things right now. You always get tribute bands anyway. We shall have to see about that.
Yeah. And then Neeson says we are in an era of offshoot bands splintering off from like original lineups and semi-original lineups. Do you feel this creates a competition to have a creative edge to your live show?
And Alan says, no, not really. Yes is an operating band right now. I feel very confident that everyone on stage is really professional musician in their own right. And this band on stage is a great incarnation of what we were and still are. That's a great answer.
Yeah. And there's a little bit more, but I was wondering if you wanted to like sort of talk about like how he's seeing like the future, near future of Yes. I kind of have a couple of thoughts on that.
I'm happy and honestly kind of surprised that he's alluding to the fact that he doesn't have plans to retire anytime soon, given his current physical condition and the way they're folding in Jay Shellen. So
right.
I don't know if he's playing it off or just like you don't release that until it's official. It's like in sports. No, we're not trading him. We're not trading him. We're not trading him. 2 days later, they trade him. So I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's a bit odd because it does very much feel like Jay Shellen is being primed to be the eventual successor in the drummer seat.
Yeah, I don't think they would do what they're doing and call me or Mike Portnoy or somebody if they're doing this with Jay. I mean, obviously he's going to fill the role.
Yeah, and another part of this is I think maybe maybe Alan knows that there will be a time to retire, but for now, like for the immediate and near future, Yes are touring. They're looking at what they're doing now and the near future because, with a band like Yes, it's very difficult to predict like all the changes that they go through. So,
yeah, they couldn't do it, so how could we? Or maybe we can, given history.
So like to look at what's going on over the next year and maybe no further than that makes sense to me because like they don't really know what's gonna happen.
Again, it's like in sports, you concentrate on tomorrow's game, not the 1-3 down the line. It's concentrating and focusing on the now. Here's a question. If Alan, let's say Alan and Steve retire at the same time, do you think they'll fill those roles if they both leave together? B, who's a candidate for Steve's role? And C, will they dissolve the whole thing? Or 4, will they carry on? And if so, will anyone care? And I don't mean that question in a disrespectful manner at all. It's a legitimate question.
Right. You mean like how much of the fan base will still
Yeah.
like, yeah, it's an
Yeah. I don't
interesting
mean like Jeff
question.
Downs. I mean like the fans. Yeah. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on all those?
So for a really like for years, I've thought that the most obvious choice, at least from my point of view, for who to replace Steve Howe would be Jimmy Hahn. You know, I know that Howe, in the past he's been very critical of the guitar stuff that was done on Union, but like that was a long time ago. And Jimmy has a really good rapport with, Billy. Like he's known him for like ever, like him and his brother.
And
Um,
Jay,
yeah, like he's known Jay for a really long time, and he has a good rapport with John Davison as well. The if
right?
all those members I mentioned are in Arc of Life,
Right.
and so like it makes sense to me that to have someone like Jimmy Hahn fill the role if they ever do decide to do that. I could also
But,
see.
sorry, I got to ask. But then is it Yes or Arc of Life with Jeff Downs?
I was just gonna like go into that.
Okay.
So,
Sorry.
well, like if they still have Jeff Downs, I think it could still be Yes. But if Jeff, Jeff would have to retire eventually as well. Like it
From Yes, not
right
necessarily. Yeah.
from Yes. And so it's a question of who would they get? Would they try to get back Oliver Wakeman, or would they even try to get Tom Brislin in? Or like I think if they do get Dave Kersner from Arc of Life in there, then they might as well just be Arc of Life, playing their own music as well as the music of Yes.
Yeah. And I think Dave Kirshner, might also still be playing with Simon Collins, Phil Collins' son, in Sound of Contact, I think. But those questions are very valid. Which band is it? Or
Right.
it's valid. So
Yeah,
so
it might depend on what they play live. Like I'm trying to think of like if there's ever been a really big band like off the top of my head that has formed another band with the exact same lineup but played like different type of music. Like there are probably examples out there. I just can't
I
think of
think
them right
Yes
now.
has done that. And Genesis as well. um, or they changed the name of the band to Arc of Yes and play both.
Yeah, who knows?
Yeah,
Like that's still like we're not there yet, so it's hard to
right.
like really gauge like
But
how we
I
feel,
think
I think.
I think it's reasonable to ask that question,
Yeah.
being that it could be in the foreseeable near future. And near to me is, I think in the next 2 years, there could be some really big changes, especially given
Mhm.
Stephen Allen's age and Allen's physical condition. I think it'll happen by the end of 2022.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I would say maybe. I mean, you're probably not far off, but I was thinking maybe like end of 2023, possibly, or I don't know, maybe the beginning of that. Maybe Allen wants to like get the full 50 years and Yes before retiring, and
Yeah.
that would be next. So who
And
knows?
I'm totally on board with that. I mean, not many people can hold a job for 50 years
Right.
or 5. I'm lucky to have 9 with Trump Talk TV, and it's my company. I haven't fired me yet. I came close.
Right.
I've actually
Um,
come close a few times, but go on.
right. But yeah, like Yes is difficult to predict, and we can make all these guesses, but at the end of the day, it's like we'll have to see.
Yeah,
But getting back into the sorry.
I'm sorry. I was going to mention something, if I could, from that interview that
Yeah.
we didn't put in the notes here to read off. Just that's an interesting fact. I was shocked. I either never knew or I completely forgot, which, as you know, is very possible. And that was when, I'm sorry, the interviewer, Ben, right?
Yeah.
When Ben mentioned that Alan to set up a question, you were invited to join America and Jethro Tull, but joined Yes instead. I don't remember that fact.
Oh, yeah.
So thinking back to that, that must have been when Barrymore Barlow joined, and I can't imagine Alan playing those songs that Barrymore did all those years. Not that
Right.
Alan doesn't have the ability or anything, but they are Barry's style. And I don't know.
Yeah,
I was like,
it's that
what?
road. Yeah, it's that road not taken that you're not used to seeing.
Yeah. And I'd
Um,
love to know what that would have been. Would they still have done a passion play, Minstrel in the Gallery, Songs from the Woods? Would all of that still have come out, and how different would it have been with Alan's drumming? So that was like, what? I had to read that like
yeah,
three
yeah.
times.
I think that was news to me as well, and it's funny because we've also heard that at one point Steve Howe was asked to join Jethro Tull like a couple years earlier, and he
Yeah.
joined
And
Yes
Tony
instead.
Iommi.
Yeah, and so it's really fun to think about these what ifs, like the things that almost happened, and sort of wonder like how different would things have been, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Sorry to interrupt the flow there. Go on.
Right. So getting back to highlights from that interview, Ben asks, or he says, that makes me wonder if you've ever heard of this band called King Gizzard and the Lizard Wizard, or Theoses. I've never
And
heard of those, but yeah.
I have
What?
not either. And Alan says, I've heard of them. I don't know the music very well, but I've heard of them.
Yeah, and then Ben
Polite
says,
answer.
yeah, and then Ben says, yeah, they're definitely in that new vein of carrying the progressive rock torch with a lot of garage rock influences and crowd rock influences as well.
Alan says you get a lot of people in these bands that rip off our ideas often, then make their own version, but that's to be expected. So yeah, I'm glad that they picked some good music to rip off and then laughs. So that's fair. I mean,
Yeah,
everything
it's a
was
very
came
funny
from something.
comment.
Yeah, everything came from something else somehow. Maybe not
Yeah,
to the Francis Monkman degree, but everything came from some other influence somewhere, somehow.
right. So yeah, it's a real good interview, and like we said, we'll link it. But getting onto this vein of tribute bands, on November 5th, one of the, or at least what I think is one of the more well-known Yes tribute bands, like I hear about them a lot and have heard a bit of them. Total Mass Retain announced a lineup change.
Oh,
Uh, yeah, so they also mentioned they're having a show at the Kenneth Flash and two shows at the Iridium in January. And in their post about the lineup change, they say, Mark Gonzalez has left Total Mass Retain. Mark, we wish you the absolute best in your next adventure. Thank you for an amazing run together. We are very excited to introduce Johnny Bruns, who has played in Circa, Yoso, and Roundabout the American Yes tribute, as the guitarist extraordinaire for these shows, and we'll see what the future holds.
hold.
Jo- Go ahead.
So, could he possibly be a candidate instead of Jimmy Hahn to keep
Mm,
some distance between those two bands? He
yeah,
also
that
apparently has a relationship with Billy, being that he played in Circa and
right.
Yoso. So, could they possibly do that just to keep that line in the sand to delineate Arc of Life versus Yes?
Yeah, that's. I'm surprised I didn't think of this earlier, and I like put this down in the
I know,
notes. So
I'm
it's like,
surprised too.
yeah, like I mean, that's a fair point. Like he could also be a potential candidate. And I mean, he also has. Well, I'll read the rest of this. It's
He may
sort
have
of.
played more Yes music than Jimmy Hahn when it comes down to it, if you look at it that way.
Yeah, I guess I'd have to like do some digging and see,
Yeah.
but I'll read the rest of this post and then finish that thought. So
Okay.
continues, Johnny and drummer Joey Cass forged a great bond going back to the days of Yoso, where Johnny toured with the legendary Tony Kaye and Billy Sherwood of Yes and Bobby Kimball of Toto. Of course, Johnny also helmed the Yes tribute band Roundabout in LA, which featured current Yes singer John Davison on vocals. So, I mean, he also has a rapport with John Davison, apparently. So, yeah, that is another possibility. Yeah, I think you're onto something.
Yeah, let us know, folks, what you think. And I know that some yahoos, bless their heart, are all getting loose right now saying, yes, is a tribute band right now. Save it. I mean, if that's your opinion, that's okay. Just don't be a prick about it. because we, that fine, express it, but don't be too jerky about it. But weigh in and let us know what you think of that possibility. I think that's a fit.
Yeah, I mean, if Yes are a tribute band, they're a pretty damn good tribute band, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Um, interesting stuff. And then, do you have anything else to say on that, or should I start off the next?
We could start off the next one.
Okay, so John Davidson was interviewed by Martin Popoff. This was released November 3rd of this year, 2021. And this is from bravewords.com. And
Yeah, and
John,
Martin is the author of that recent book, Yes, a Visual Biography. So like he
right.
knows his stuff.
Yeah, he said that the Quest title was Steve's idea and that there were no working titles as everyone was really into the title. He talked a bit about the songwriting process and the songs on the Quest. And when asked his opinion of why 90125 was so successful, Davison responded, well, I suppose they had successfully managed to tap into the current sound at the time. I totally agree. And while still preserving just enough of the familiar Yes trademarks that endeared the 70s fan base. Having a hit single like Owner of a Lonely Heart certainly solidified their validity to a more immediate and pop-oriented music culture too, right? And I want to comment on his response because I think it's spot on. And I
Yeah.
also think that that's why bands like Genesis and Rush had endured the way they did, because they became adaptable with the times. And while some old farts like me and older might have hung in there with them if they stayed with their mid 70s sounds, they never would have opened the doors to all this new generations of listeners and of listeners that prefer different genres as they got a bit more commercial, more accessible, whatever we want to call it. And so I think John's spot on. And Yes, really did tap into what the sound at the time was. And we've talked about this before, Steve, that the album cover did as well.
Yeah.
For 9. I remember seeing that, holding in my hands and saying, the future is here. It just was so damn modern. And then to see them on that tour and that weird stage and John's mic that was cordless but had a cord going to the thing on his belt. Just the whole thing was so futuristic, and it was the 80s after all. So I think that's a great take. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think he's spot on as well. And I thought this comment was worth mentioning because, November 7th was the 38th anniversary of that album, 90,125. Yeah, I know that's not what it's actually called, but 90125. And, we'll talk about that a bit more on the Fragile episode because there are like a couple parallels I noticed. But yeah,
and by the way, folks, that'll be out this week if you're listening to this on like the anytime from November 14th.
Well, it'll be out on the 26th, which is
the actual anniversary. Yeah. That's right. Thank you for correcting me.
Yeah. But 90125 really did adapt to the era. Like, Trevor Rabin brought in some demos, and the demos sound more rocking, and then the other band members did their thing, and Trevor Horn, of a producer that he has such an ear for like what's gonna be like poppy. Like it was his suggestion that they put Owner of a Lonely Heart on the record when Rabin wasn't so sure, and lo and behold, that was a hit song, and you just can't get away from it.
It literally put them back on the map as big as Roundabout did when it came out in that era. And we'll get to that when we do the episode. So watch for that, folks. November 26th.
Yeah. All right. So that's a good tease. So also on November 5th came an announcement from Rick Wakeman. What? Rick Wakeman.
Rick Wakeman.
Yeah, so Rick Wakeman and the English Rock Ensemble are having a UK tour this coming year. So it reads, almost 20 years since they last toured the UK with a diverse set, keyboard wizard Rick Wakeman, CBE, is delighted to announce that he is reforming the English rock ensemble for British shows in March and April 2022. The group will be performing at London's O2 Shepherd's Bush Empire, March 30th, or 30th March, I guess. O2 Academy Birmingham, the 31st. O2 Academy Glasgow, April 1st. And O2 City Hall, Newcastle, April 3rd, as well as headlining HRH Prague 12 at O2 Academy Sheffield. The English rock ensemble was originally founded in 1975 as a solo project by Rick after leaving Yes, and has continued to play together intermittently over the years with a fluid lineup. Rick explains, "On the rare occasions I'm able to get the English rock ensemble together, it's always very exciting to me, as the setlist determines the lineup. This particular show will include some songs that various female singers have sung with me over the years, and because we will be playing some tracks from the Red Planet, there will also be, additional musicians in order to do the music justice." And then it says, consequently, in addition to Rick, of course, on keyboards, the lineup will consist of Dave Calcajon on guitar and backing vocals, Tony Fernandez on drums and percussion.
His longtime drummer from when he first started this, Tony Fernandez, left-handed drummer who's awesome. And he's played on just about, if not everything Rick's done. Really great drummer.
And Lee Pomeroy on bass.
Really good bass player. Vocals. Yeah, really good bass. I think, Lee is in my favorite thing that Rick has done, and that is Six Wives at Hampton Court. So is, of course, Tony. Sorry, I love seeing this lineup. This is really exciting to me.
And Haley Sanderson on vocals. Adam Wakeman on keyboard, guitar.
His son. I don't know if you know that. That's his son.
Yeah, I was about to joke. I wonder if they're related. Huh?
and he played in Hampton Court, that thing. Folks, if you haven't seen that, you got to get it. It's amazing.
Yeah, and it says, while the set list is still under discussion, it will, I guess if you want to be surprised, you can skip ahead a minute. It says it will contain music from 1984, The Six Wives of Henry VIII, Journey to the Center of the Earth, and Return to the Center of the Earth. The Time Machine, and King Arthur.
Yes.
Yeah, Soft Sword, and at least one Yes song will get an airing.
Owner of a Lonely Heart. Well, it's got to be Roundabout, right?
Well, I'll get to that. Okay. Finishing the quote, he says, it will be solid prog from start to finish. So yeah, you kind of like got into it. I was gonna ask, what Yes song do you think he'll end up playing? So do you think it's for sure Roundabout, or might it be something else?
So I think it's Roundabout is the obvious one. It's from the first album that he joined the band. It's a landmark album. It's the most popular song of Yes up to that point, and it's endured ever since. So that it's got to have that legendary organ solo. Other than that, I would think I don't think it's anything from Close to the Edge. So could it be Awaken? Could it be Going for the One? Could it be, I don't know. Like, those are what comes to mind in that order. You know, it's got to be something that features him. So Going for the One doesn't have a keyboard solo. Parallels does, but I don't think it'll be Parallels. Could it be in You and I? Maybe I'm wrong. Could it be that? That's pretty grandiose, but it's a long song. I don't know. If it's all of Close to the Edge, that would be cool. I would be very impressed. But what do you think? It does have a female vocalist in the lineup, so potentially vocal-wise, we could say maybe she could pull anything off. What do you think? I don't think it's soon.
Right. Yeah, because guessing about this, I guess I was kind of taking a minimalist approach, like thinking, it'll probably be a short song, so it'll probably be Wondrous Stories. Like, I've seen him play that in concert before, and it's like really good.
But only by himself.
Right, yeah, I've seen him play it by himself, but thinking about this whole ensemble thing, it's like,
I would take advantage of that.
Yeah, I guess it could like do something longer, like an epic, like Awaken or like something like that.
Yeah,
Um,
but I don't know if he'd carve out that much time in the set for it.
or maybe South Side of the Sky.
Oh, that would be great.
Like that's a
With
good
the
middle
keyboard
ground, right?
guitar duo at the end,
Yeah.
like he did with Steve. That's fair.
Yeah,
And
like it's
folks,
not
what do you
as
think?
long, but it's still a decent length.
Yeah,
Yeah.
folks, what do you think? And what do you think? Like, not what you want to hear. I mean, I'd love to hear Close to the Edge, Awaken, Siberian Kadruin, and You and I, but that's not going to happen. What do you think he'll do? What do you think is a reasonable prognostication of what he'll do? And let's tally that and mention that on another episode. And then in a few months, see what it actually ends up being. And save that data and see who gets it right and they win something.
Yeah, bragging rights.
Your yes shirt or
Yeah, I
something.
don't know.
You'll sign it with a silver
I'm not
sharpie.
giving away this shirt. Just FYI.
So that's an interesting topic right there. I wonder what the heck it is.
Right. So, do you have any other thoughts on that tour before
Uh,
we move on? I just like that he's busy, that he has all
I
these
do too.
plans.
And playing such adventurous stuff with a band and not by himself. I would love to see that come to the US. And it's tempting to say, you know what? Well, you've been to the UK. I haven't. I'm finally going to the UK. I want to see this. What an awesome trip that would be. He would have played out here. I live 100 miles from Phoenix, folks, in the mountains, and he was going to be here. It would have been November 9th, but things got pushed. So it's like,
Right.
so I think it's awesome. And I love the lineup is great. It's exciting. This is really cool stuff. And prog music is so alive, and it's still alive with some of the living legends, which I really, really dig. I really do.
Yeah. So, like with his current tour and the Christmas shows, and supposedly working on a musical early next year, and then this, like, it sounds like he's pretty busy for the next several months, which is great. Like,
Yeah.
I know he said that he missed touring, so like, I'm glad he's like really, like, it is still being safe and like doing all this within
I just
reason. Yeah. Yeah.
I just hope he's taking care of himself. I
Right.
mean, even forgetting the age thing, you know, he he suffered from alcoholism in his 20s. He had his first heart attack at 26 or 27 from the pressure of going solo. He's had pleurisy. He's diabetic like I am. I know the pain that comes with that, literally, and other things. I really just hope he takes care of himself and this happens.
Right.
And
Yes.
that he just takes care of himself. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, definitely. Like all musicians, like just like all people, should take really good care of themselves.
Yeah,
Because
it's
yeah,
so easy to, in this crazy world to slip into excess of anything, whether it's just overeating or not eating or eating the wrong thing, drinking the wrong thing. Folks, I have diabetes because I became a fruitaholic and a juiceaholic for like the last 10 years. I didn't grow up eating candy, drinking punch, having a lot of desserts, eating sweet cereal. I got it because of what I thought was healthy, and it just wasn't right for my body's changes at the time as I became a senior citizen. So you never know. So, like Steve says, take care of yourself and watch out for the excess behavior.
right.
Public
So
service announcements from the Yesshift.
yeah, so best wishes to Rick Wakeman on those plans. And let's move on to yet another Wakeman. This is our last news item here. So Oliver Wakeman was recently interviewed by the Yes Music podcast. The episode came out yesterday as of when we're recording. And he talked about that album he did with Clive Nolan that we talked about, Dark Fables,
Yeah.
as well as the process of making the soundtrack for the Rodney Matthews book Yendor. Um, and so I listened to this episode. Like he's really gentlemanly and goes through like the process, and it's like really interesting, like how like all this stuff gets put together. And I actually listened to Dark Fables. It's really good. He sounds a lot like his dad. I don't want to make it seem like he's like a carbon copy of his dad, but it's like it's hard not to
And
make
we don't
those
want that. So that's
right.
good.
Yeah, like it's hard not to make those comparisons, but
Yeah.
I mean, all that is to say that talent runs in the family, and Dark Fables has a really great feel to it. It makes me want to listen to those other albums that he did that's part of that Tales from Gaslight box set. And he also talked about his process with learning music for Yes concerts back when he joined the band
Oh, I
back in
would
the
love
day.
to hear this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll send you the link later.
I'm going
It's
to ask you something slightly personal, but not personal, just because I know I'll forget to ask you this. Do you have the Dark Fables CD?
No, but I listened to it on like the Oliver Wakeman YouTube channel.
Okay, because I want to take it on our trip.
Yeah, that would be really good driving music. Yeah.
Yeah, that and also Lobate Scarp. I want to get some of this stuff and take it on the trip. So send me a list and I'll order it. We'll support them because I believe in buying music. I'm so old
Right.
school. I want this.
Yeah, because Lobate Scarp's
I
first
want the
album is out, and the second one comes out February 2nd.
yeah, I want the physical thing. I want to look at the booklet and get this out.
Yeah.
So just send me a list. I'll get that for the trip.
Yeah. So it's a really good episode. Like, I encourage all Yes fans to give it a listen. And he
Great.
also mentioned a bit of news about a box set coming out early next year. So it would include his collaborations with Steve Howe and his collaborations with Gordon Giltrap. And um, so the Giltrap stuff would have bonus tracks, the Steve Howe stuff would be remastered, and it would even include a live album with Wakeman and Giltrap that never got put
Wow.
out.
When
So
we make notes of things like that, when we make note of things like that and talk about them, the other stuff that he put out that was uncovered, Led Zeppelin's done it, Jimmy Page re-releasing stuff. I wonder if there's any stuff with John Wetton that hasn't been released. Music, not different versions or mixes or remasters, but for ELP as well, if there's music that we've never heard that didn't get released by ELP or by Asia or by King Crimson with John Wetton or UK, I would love to hear that.
yeah, like some of this stuff had come out, but they're adding a bit more to it that hadn't been released before. And like he touched upon this a bit, that like it's good to put out some of this stuff because some of it was done before he was in Yes, and so like the Yes fans who got introduced to him through Yes might not have known about it, and now they will. So yeah, I always love hearing more stuff from all these musicians, regardless of like what era it's from.
I agree. Absolutely. And just today, as we're recording this, the 13th of November, Oliver shared a picture of a tapestry John Anderson gave to his dad during the Going for the One sessions. I'd love to see that. So if you have that, you're seeing it now, folks. If Steve has that, if it's out there, we've got it. You're seeing it on screen
Yeah.
now. If not, sorry.
Yeah, it's on the Oliver Wakeman Facebook page.
Oh, okay, great, great.
Yeah, yeah, it looks really nice. It's like a little bit of history. The Going for the One sessions are
Oh,
just.
wow. I wish I saw it ahead of time so that I could be commenting on it. Well, you know what? Hold on. I'll do that. You vamp while it's on Oliver Wakeman's Facebook page, you say?
Yeah.
How you spell Wakeman? Okay. I'll pull it up, but
a Wakeman gentleman's touch.
You could describe it while I'm pulling it up because I want to see it and give my thoughts. I think that's really neat.
Yeah, it's got greenish bluish edges, and toward the center it has like some red on there, like on the yellow. It's rectangular. If that might be obvious, I don't know.
But when you say tapestry, like what's the there it is. Oh wow, it's Enja would love this. It almost looks like a macrame type of tapestry, and the lines and curvatures are very much representative of the ribbons that they had on the 77 Going for the One tour, which represented the ribbon sort of graphic that went across the album cover. You got the buildings in Century City, the guy with the butt showing from the Hemispheres album by Rush which he did going for the one first. I think it's the same guy. or also he was on the 2112, so maybe he was there for. But anyways, it totally looks like from that era. That's really neat. And now he's got it, huh?
Yeah, he says that John gave it to Rick, and then recently Oliver's mom found it and passed it on to him.
Huh?
So yeah, it's really
Interesting.
cool.
Very neat. Take a peek at that, folks.
Yeah.
Great. So that is the news desk report for November here on Yesshift. Unless some breaking news comes out in the meantime before we do one in December. November 26th is the big anniversary of Fragile. Watch for that. And we will also give some interesting comparison thoughts on 90125's place in history, which also had an anniversary this month. And there are some interesting little factoids that tie those together. But that's going to be a fun one. We're actually recording that tomorrow night or tonight as you hear this, or whenever you hear it. It's being recorded on November 14th. Oh boy, I'm rambling. I haven't slept much.
Right. But yeah, I think that's a really good news episode. And of course, still some stuff coming up, like Animals Reimagined on the 19th. I'm very excited to listen to that.
Yeah.
And like
other Prague universe info.
Yeah. Yeah, I just love listening to the new releases and gathering my thoughts about them.
Absolutely. There's still a lot of great music coming out, and a lot of it is tied to legendary prog music here in the 2020s. Who would have ever thought? You know, that's just amazing.
Yeah, prog is still alive and well.
Yeah.
Fortunately.
Absolutely. Thanks for listening, everybody. And you can follow us and see the visual versions of these episodes if you care to see us, but we often will cut in graphics. There weren't a lot in this one, but that's facebook.com/yesshift. And you can listen to us on various podcast channels distributed by Anchor. We're at anchor.fm/yesshift. I don't know why that's so hard for me to say. We'd love to hear from you. Tell them how they can get a hold of us and give us comments, suggestions, hate mail, love mail, whatever you got. We're big boys. We could take it.
Yeah, you can email us at yesshiftpodcast@gmail.com. Comment on any of the stuff we talked about, and we might read your thoughts on the show. Because, it's not just us. We love to hear what other people think as well. And just, it's more fun that way, getting to talk to the Yes fandom in general. Whenever there aren't like any problems, obviously, but that goes without saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think from time to time, we haven't discussed this. I'm just throwing it out there. We'll start doing some Facebook Live episodes as well, where you could chat with us in the comments in real time, like I do on Drum Talk TV. So Steve, we'll talk about that. Let's start planning that. And lastly, folks, just stay proggy, not foggy.
Nice.
Close this thing on. I'll be here all night. Try the roast beef. It's great. All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.